Good evening. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 9. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. And we have Ryan Vong back for another incredible episode. Hey, if this is your first time joining us, please go back to last week's episode, which was episode 8, and listen to that so you can get to know Ryan and his incredible story of who he is and what made him who he is. Today, we're going to jump into the business side of what Ryan has done, and you need to know where he came from before you listen any further. What's up, Lucas? How are you?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm stoked to have Ryan back on the show.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. After last week's episode with Ryan, I know you know this because I kept texting you about it. It was such an incredible episode. Got me inspired, got me fired up. And those are my selfish reasons because of what I was able to learn from it and just hearing stories that I knew. And it was just like remembering some of those stories, which, really makes you think like, what do I have to complain about? Like, I am such a weak human. Like everybody I've told about the episode, I'm like, it reinforced like how much more I need to be doing in life and living with intent and being thankful for what we have. And so I don't know.
Listening back to as I'm editing everything, there were a couple of times where I had to stop and I was like, I'm so glad for whatever reason, whether I was taking notes or looking at something on the tech side, that I didn't hear everything that Ryan said the first time through because I'm doing some other stuff on the computer where I was like I had to stop and just kind of take a breath. It's like, this is intense. And then today, whenever he came in and he was telling me about the stuff that he does today, I was like, I don't even know why you have me here when I'm so technologically inferior to our guests. So
yeah, or his son that could come and just run everything.
Yeah,
for
absolutely,
us.
For sure.
Yeah, I was talking to Amanda about that, about how we got into that, and Amanda was like, "Well, no wonder he was so bored in regular school. He's smarter than all the teachers and the staff there." I'm like, "Well, that's factual as well." So, anyways, yeah. Ryan, what's up, man? How are you?
Good.
How's your week been?
Week has been incredibly busy, but in a very good way.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with the listeners before we dive into this from just life in general? Or
yeah, I thought about our last episode, and I think my story was unique to me, but there's definitely millions of other folks, right, dealing with challenges, just different scenarios. And I think, and I appreciate you guys letting me highlight some of those.
Yeah.
But, my story is unique to me, but it's not unique in terms of a theme for folks who are struggling. So appreciate that. And the other thing, too, was I went home and I said, Jeanette, my wife, I said, babe, these things that you're going to hear I talk about, that I'm typically very private as a person. And I would probably share those between friends and really when I really trust. Mm-hmm. And here I am on a podcast for the first time talking about it to everyone. So it actually felt good. It felt good. That's probably the best way I can describe it. I felt a sense of relief from, just, I guess, hiding those stories or being sort of, you're kind of shameful about it. There are themes there because people judge you based on how you grew up, what you wear, your histories. That's still very prevalent. I gotta say. So
yeah,
unfortunately, but it's okay. I think what you said resonated, which is if any of these things connect with someone and was able to help them, it's worth it. And I thought, you know what? That's good enough of a reason. I'm okay to do that. So
that's awesome, man. I love that you said you went home and you're like, Jeanette, and then you started talking about it with your wife. It just reinforces to me the awesome relationship that you and Jeanette have. And, my wife and I have a good relationship, but what you just said is a reminder to me that I have to be more intentional with sharing and having alignment with my wife because we talk about this podcast, but I haven't gone back and been like, hey, babe, and like dove into some of the stuff to share with her. Now, I know your situation is a little bit different because this is the first time sharing it, but man, it just makes me happy to hear that you're like, hey, you went home and you told your wife to get alignment and just to share stuff with her. So I mean, that takeaway alone, I'm good for the day. I'm
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Well, we have an agreement on. Well, first of all, I'm usually really excited to share anything with her.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
It's your best friend. She's your best friend.
Yeah. But I get into the mode of sometimes, are you talking about it from a friend perspective or as a husband?
Okay.
Because sometimes it's important. You know, if you just need a friend, that to me is just listen. Try not to solve, which is really hard for us.
Yeah.
Just listen. I said, okay, you want friend ears. Great. And then you just, support, you hear, because she's an independent person with her own thoughts and, she's going through stuff and she shares and I listen. Then sometimes it's, I really want your opinion. And that's different. And we finally got to the point where I said, if you want an opinion, then just ask, okay, because I can't really read that. And so she'll say, what do you think? And it's like, okay, then I could try to help solve. And that's been a thing. And I guess we just got into this rhythm of sharing, like less about the events of the day and more probably daily insightful things or, just joy.
Yeah.
Like she's building up the house for Christmas right now. And it is probably going to be quite the scene outside.
Let's go.
But it's just joy. She's like sharing her joy, and I see that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm all for this, right?
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes we get into these relationships, or we get into a relationship where we forget. It becomes sort of a pattern, and you hear that a lot. Like, yeah, we kind of fell into a pattern, and I think it's not just the pattern of being together, but it's more, and you can still do a lot of the same things. It's a pattern of discovery because the person's changing their thoughts all the time.
Okay.
And I want to know. I truly want to know, like, where you are, how are you feeling with the kids? How are you dealing with your mom? And, and how is that stress? And let's talk. And, like we tend to find, and it's not a lot, sometimes 5 minutes where I just, let me hear it. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, that's something I need to be more intentional with for sure. I know that. Well, dude, that's awesome. All right, so last week I said the following about Ryan. He's always working. He's always seeking more knowledge. He is always bettering himself. He is a successful businessman. He's an honorable father. He's an honorable husband, and a man I am proud to call a friend. Anyone that listened to last week's episode or the first 7 minutes of this episode knows that to be true. And last week we dove into some of those subjects, and I'm very thankful for that. And I really want to appreciate you. I want to show my appreciation to you and really, truly thank you for sharing those lessons with us. But as we shift focus, I would like for us to be able to go into just learning more about how your brain has been developed and works in regards to like the business aspect. So what was your first job and did it have impact on where you are at today with business? And it doesn't have to be super long and drawn out, but just kind of give me a framework for that your first job and how it transitioned into business.
So my first job or unofficial job was really helping my parents. They were in janitorial services. They cleaned offices. They, cleaned toilets. They were the silent crew at night that would come in and you come back the next day and everything's clean and put in place. That's them. So at nights I would go with them. Wow. I'd help them vacuum. And we used to work, these buildings in Silicon Valley at the time. It was just starting out. So you had lots of semiconductor companies like building in the area. My dad would bring me and I would vacuum all the floors. And that was my job. Just go vacuum all the floors. I got really good at it.
Do you still like vacuuming? Or do you not like it?
I actually do because I'm a little bit crazy about how the patterns of the vacuum
I do the same thing, man. I love vacuuming. If I can vacuum, please let me take that
it's
over.
a very peaceful thing.
Okay, good. I'm not
There you go.
absolutely
No, you're
alone
not.
in my craziness.
You're
Okay, sorry
in
to
a good
interrupt
club.
you.
No, you're in a good club.
Hey, if I'm in a club with the way Ryan Vong's brain thinks, I will take any connection to that as possible.
That's an upper echelon club.
All right, sorry. So vacuuming.
Yes,
Okay.
the patterns of the carpet have to form a triangle. Okay, just lots of triangles.
Yep.
So it's beautiful when it's done right. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go, and I used to wonder who are these people in these cubicles,
Yeah, you said that.
right? And who are in the offices. So it made an impression on me that someday I could do that or be there. I didn't know what there was or anything. So that was my sort of like first official job. But the first real sort of job I got on my own was at the Berryessa flea market. I don't know if it's like a swap meet.
Oh, yeah.
Off, and it's probably the largest potentially in the world. Like just everybody was there.
That's crazy.
And I got a job selling radios.
That's legit.
Yeah, it was legit. I went there. I had a connection because my aunt worked there to some guy who was selling radios and car stereos and whatnot, boom boxes, everything. Back
Yeah,
then. I mean, it was
big old boom box.
big old
over the
boom
shoulder
box.
one. Yeah.
Yes, I was 13 years old, and not you weren't documented to work there, but hey, right? And it was my first time really getting official sales training, I would say. And sales training meaning, imagine a market, and you're learning how to read people really fast. You're learning to see that the value what you can get for what you're giving them. And so I learned the skills from this guy who owned the shop, and he was cutthroat. He was good. He was smooth. He was everything that you would think of a radio, stereo salesman at the swap meet would be, right?
I have an idea in my brain.
Yeah, and the hand gestures, the tone, and I'm just sitting there watching him, and it's like the speed of which he spoke to people, how he mimicked them when they were speaking. Like if you spoke slow, he would speak slow. If you spoke fast, he would speak fast. And I'm like, this guy's like a chameleon, like incredible. And I worked there for, I believe, 6 months. And it was like, you get up, you go there at 5 a.m, you help him set up, and he teaches you like what the price of things are. At some point you got to learn it, but then there was sell it for whatever you think you can get, right? As much as you can get.
Yeah.
There was no, just as long as you don't sell it for this much, right?
Okay.
Like, so you knew the bottom price. And people would come in and start haggling. And it was my first time really in a market environment where it was just dynamically changing, and you can read them and you can kind of feel and sense where they, where some of the objections would be. And they start asking. A lot of it was never about the technology in the radio, right? Like it's like people generally accept that it will work and everything. It's just about what they think it's worth. And back in those days, the larger the boxes, the more value people believed was in it. Although it was mostly empty, right? It was like speakers and small things, small components, and yet the box was huge and the weight of it was heavy. And so it gave a false sense of value. And 6 months into this, I had this lady come up. She was just a sweet lady from Sweden. I found out later, and we were negotiating this stereo that was gigantic. It was just huge, and she bought it. I sold it for probably 400% above whatever.
Your boss wanted, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. But I'm a 13-year-old kid and innocent looking enough, right? I'm like, I think it's this much. Let me check. Oh no, it's. I found out I can get you a deal or whatever. I don't even remember what I said.
Just hustling.
She just trusted me,
Yeah.
and there was something about the way she just said, without even saying it, she felt trust. And that was the first time where I was like not looking at essentially everyone like a mark. I'm going to get as much, where I just felt like another human on the other side who was genuinely interested in buying something and trusted what I was going to say or what I said. I took the money And of course, my boss at the time said, "Can you help her bring the radio to her car?" And it was quite a distance between the parking and everything. I said, and she asked him, and he said, "Sure. Why don't you help the nice lady bring," because at this point he made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I helped her carry this thing. And as I'm carrying this thing, walking over, she looked at me and said, "Did I get a good deal on this?" And I said, "You got a really great deal." But I knew she didn't. It bothered me. As I kept carrying this thing to the car, every step got heavier. I felt worse. And she was so happy about her purchase, right? And I, where are you from? Sweden, small talk. Helped her load it in the car. And then I got back and I quit. That was it.
I was wondering if that was coming next.
I was like, and my boss was, "What? You just made the biggest sale. Like, why? What are you, and he's cursing me out. And,
It's a great way to talk to a 13-year-old, by the way.
Well, luckily it was in a different language, so I had no idea what he was saying. He was not happy with me.
But still.
It was just, I was like, pay me my $20 for the day.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Hey, $20.
Hey, no, I get it. Yeah, that's great.
Hey.
Yeah, take it.
Take it, man. So that was it. That was like that was a defining moment for how I was going to approach doing business with anybody.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet, and I know absolutes are something you shouldn't really do in life, but I would be willing to bet that every single person that's listening to this podcast can relate to what you just said, because I know in my life I had done stuff like that where you do it and then you realize that was not the right thing, and it bothers you so much to the point that you're like, I can't do this anymore, or I'm not going to do this anymore. And there's some people that are just like, and then they keep doing it or it doesn't bother them. But we all feel that. We all know the difference between right and wrong. And the fact that you were at 13 years old were able, which I know a lot of our kids are about that age and younger. They know the difference between right and wrong. And that's a really good defining moment. So that defining moment at an early age, that established just kind of like a base and a platform for how you were going to operate moving forward, do you think? Or was it kind of there?
Obviously, at that point, at that time, I didn't know how it was going to affect my life.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I just knew that is not the way I wanted to conduct myself. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was going to get a lot of, words from my parents about it, because it's a job, right? You're getting paid. You just do it. That's their attitude about things. But they didn't, which was very surprising. They said nothing of it. They just said, "Okay, what's the next job?"
Did you tell them why you quit though?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I said I just didn't feel right, and they didn't question it, which I was surprised. Like, honestly, I was very surprised.
Really? Because
my parents are great people, but when there are defining moments like that, I think they sense it, they see it, they don't say much, but they were okay with it. And I felt good about it.
Got it.
And, I found another job, right? There was another job and I found it. I mean, it wasn't difficult for a child to go get any job that was paying anything.
Yeah.
At this point, this is why I have a hard time with kids that have a problem with whatever job they're finding. It's like, what about these things? And blah, blah. I'm like, okay.
Or adults that play that same game.
There are opportunities everywhere. You just have to do it and accept it.
Yeah.
Right?
My brother on his, I was on Facebook and my brother had posted something and I was just like reading through the comments. It was really cool. My brother posted like, hey, instead of buying somebody with the holidays coming up, with Christmas coming up, instead of buying somebody the gift you think they want, why don't you ask them like, hey, what do you need? And like, if it's help with groceries or if it's help with, schooling for the kids or supplies for their kids or you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that could probably actually just use a little bit of cash to go towards their mortgage or their rent or groceries or a gift card to a grocery store. Like, hey, giving a family like a gift card to like Kroger or Target or Walmart could probably make a huge difference in their life. A huge difference in their life. Instead of just buying them some gift that does literally nothing for them. And I thought it was cool. My brother's heart has always been that way. And so I was like looking through the comments, and there was a gentleman, and this is not a negative thing towards him at all. I'm sure he probably does not listen to this podcast, but if he does, like, hey, buddy, this is not a negative thing towards you at all. He literally was he got on there and just was playing the victim card of like, I'm living out of my truck. I have all these things going on, blah, 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 which sucks. He's in a bad spot. My brother legitimately had good responses for everything. He's like, I just want to shower right now. And my brother's like, go get a gym membership at Planet Fitness. It's $9.99 a month. You can shower there every single day. Go get a job at Walmart. They need people to work there right now. You can sleep in their parking lot you know what I mean? My brother's like, he's like, you won't be late for work, just like, and my brother was legitimately trying to help this guy with like, and the guy would response, and he was like, boom, boom, boom. And of course the guy was like, well, I would like, my ideal thing is like, I want to get back into sales. But then immediately it was like, well, I can't because my hip's arthritic and I can't walk around. Like, it was just all these things. And I felt bad for him. And I had empathy because I understand. But also the part of me was so frustrated. And I'm like, dude, you are legitimately making excuses for everything. There are people that are severely handicapped and disabled that are working jobs right now. That are working jobs right now. You can make excuses or you can make things happen. You can't do both. And I said, and that part of me was also, I know I was being protective of my little brother. And I'm like, he's trying to help you and you're just completely blowing it away. And so that prompted me of that story of like you saying that, because it's like, yeah, like there's no reason why you can't get a job. There's zero reason. The only reason is because your ego gets in the way. Like, I can't drive Uber. Yes, you can. Like, oh, Uber doesn't pay me enough. It pays more than nothing, and so, and I have friends that drive Uber to bridge the gap, and it's not ideal, but it bridges the gap enough to where they're not worried about not being able to get gas for their vehicle or groceries for their family. I mean, you and I, we've talked about this.
1,000%. I think the biggest.
Sorry, I get so fired up about that stuff.
I get it. This is my sort of reality when someone tells me they can't do something. Most of the limitation is self-imposed. Yep. It really is. It is self-imposed. And I think if we stop limiting ourselves, imagine the greatest human potential movement ever.
Insane.
To just be incredibly productive.
Can you imagine what this nation would look like?
Incredible.
Let's go,
incredible, man. Yeah. It's
or the world in general?
The world in general. Like, it's incredible. And as much as stories inspire, it needs to be backed by some action of some sort. And it can start small. I always tell folks, look, I'm in a place in life now, folks will seek me out for advice on business or starting one or whatever. What are my ideas? Or, I have an idea I'll run by. There are many ideas. But what are you going to do, right? What is the next step you're going to take to fulfill that idea? Yeah. Because it's only going to sit in your head unless you do something. Yep. And you got to take action. Associate the idea with some action. I default to action all the time, so it's probably a theme. I just go, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to go do that. Yes. I mean, like, it's just in college, now that it's been a few years, but I went to college and I qualified for some loans and I was on an athletic scholarship. But then I said, well, what's the interest on these loans? When do I need to pay it back? And he said, well, you don't pay it back till you graduate 6 months later, and it's 4.5%. I said, well, I think I could do better with this. So yes, I'm going to sign it up. And then I used it. And of course, like I said, fail, but fail on the things that you can recover from. And this was during a time when online trading was just starting.
Yeah.
And of course, being in college, I got an account. I started day trading. I didn't sleep. I turned my $2,500 loan. I think at the height of it was like $72,000. Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah. It was like, and I was so proud of myself, right?
As you should be.
Well,
I don't care what's about to happen after. I'm just saying, I'm like the math on that 2,500 to over 70 grand.
yeah. Well,
I'm not a mathematician, but those numbers are good.
They're great. They're great. But then there was, you leverage margin to do it. But it got there, and I was so proud at the time. I even called up Teresa, which is my wife's best friend since 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, when I'm out of college, I'm going to ask her to marry me because we have money. Like, I'm going to be able to afford a ring, a house. Like, I'm like all settled into this thing. And then, of course, the 98 time frame, .com crash took everything. And
But what was awesome is it showed you what you could do.
I never found limitations. Like in college when I needed money and I saw these, I went to San Francisco State and people paid for these parking passes for a semester. And there's these little parking passes you kind of hang on your windshield, and the patrol would walk by and won't give you a ticket. And I said, well, what is that? Let me see one of those. How much do you pay for these things? Like, it's $81. And I was like, oh, what about the old ones? Like, oh, we just throw them away. I said, the only difference is they changed the color and they have that little metallic, strip with the numbers on it, but who knows what those numbers mean?
Yeah.
So I said, is there a way to duplicate this so I can sell it? Of course, those are my younger years, but it wasn't that bad. I was like, I'm going to do it. So I said, well, what is a program? And this is the first time I got introduced to computers, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, there's this thing called Photoshop. I'm like, oh, great. Like, I don't know how to use it, but let me try. And I found a version that I didn't have to pay for. And I started printing these things and I started cutting. I said, give me your old ones. And of course I started selling them on campus, and, it was good until I got to do something else. And then there was like a time when, this was during the first Sony PlayStation.
Okay.
The first one.
Yeah.
Those things, you couldn't play foreign games. And people wanted the foreign games from different countries, like would import it, like Japanese games and such. There's a way to modify the boards in there, right?
Of course,
the chips, so that you can play any versions of games.
That's amazing.
And I looked up. This was early days, but you can find information online. And I said, you know what? Let me try this. For $12, you get a bag of like computer chips. And you would have to solder them on specific places on the board. And it worked. So I ordered some. I tried it on mine. And of course, if you break it, man, it was like, back then it was like $40, or I forgot what it was. I was like, oh my gosh, that's expensive. I did that as well. Like, I was like, okay, guys, anybody? So I'm carrying bags of these PlayStations around campus. People would just give them to me. And I would just, go home and find there's like several diagrams you look at, start soldering them, checking out things, and something. Like,
that's incredible. How much would you charge for that?
$20. $20.
That's amazing.
It's money. Hey.
No, I'm just,
Bro, we would have been such good friends when we were in college.
I was like, it's like a nerd Oreo
I would have
right
kept
now.
you in the dorm room soldering, and I would just be running PlayStations to you all day long.
Yeah. I carried duffel bags of this stuff. I did so many random things. It was just, it's the way, look, my parents, zero money for college. It means you go to college, fine, but that's tuition. Mm-hmm. What do you eat? How do you live? Like,
I think it's great. I think honestly, someone's hearing and It's like if you can get your kids' college paid for, that's great. But man, I don't know. I err on the side of like let your kids struggle and learn, because think of how much of an incredible mindset you have. It was fight or flight when it came to being resourceful and making things happen. And I'm thankful. Honestly, I'm sorry, but I'm thankful that your parents had no money for you to go to college. Because that really is a defining moment of who you are. And I struggle with this because of, like, my kids will go to college for free because of some of the things I did in the military. I don't know if I want that. I talked to Amanda about that. She's like, yeah, but the college paid for it. I'm like, I don't know if I want that. You talk about some friction. That she's like,
there are other ways to teach us the same lesson.
I agree. I know. But I go back and forth. I'm like, and especially as I'm listening to you, I'm like, you know what? I want my kid. I want Aiden rolling around with a duffel bag full of PlayStations because that's the only way he's going to get food next week. I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a jerk dad, but
no.
I love hearing stories like that. I love that story.
Yeah. Look, I have no. You know, there's a saying where you like burn the boats, right? Like, okay, if you want to eat, you got to do something. Well, there it is. You need extra money. I didn't go on my senior high school trip everyone took to Disneyland because it was like, don't have money for that. I have 2 out of the 4 years of yearbooks because those were the only 2 years I saved enough to get a yearbook, right? Like, you know, and if people are, let's go out on a date and go do this. Wow, where are we going? What's it? Where's it cost? Like, what are we bringing? You know, it's like, oh no, I'm busy. Like, those were really tough moments where you try to be, you know, social and whatnot, and it's super embarrassing. It really is. Like, these things are for a child going, you know, you're growing up, and it's like there's that whole social element of it too, and they're wondering why you can't. And I had a friend who was in a similar situation, and we would trade clothes. He would have clothes, I would have clothes. We're like about the same size shoes, and I'd say, hey man, like, let's swap clothes this week. And you know, that way we had different clothes. Where, I mean, it was just, you got creative.
Yeah.
And I think my theme is this. It's, don't limit yourself. Be creative in what it is. And you're right about the ego. Right? There are some things that are, yes, embarrassing, but not when it comes time to, hey, giddy up, you got to do this. There's nothing embarrassing about earning a living. There's nothing embarrassing. I don't care what you do. Yeah. My parents were janitors for 20-some years. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, they did what? I'm like, yeah, we clean toilets.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Like, yeah. What do you want? Right? Like, I have no judgment on anyone that does anything for a living.
I'm glad that you said that for our listeners to hear that. I've never understood why people judge other people on how they make money. I don't get that. Like, I'm sorry, I know we're trying to keep this episode clean on our language, but it makes me so mad because I had parents that were very hard workers like yours, and they did anything and everything to provide for our family. And it showed me you do anything and everything to provide for your family. And also, my parents taught me the same values that your parents taught you by, you don't judge people off of, 1, what they look like, 2, where they're from, what language they speak, what food they eat, what clothes they wear. None of that defines who that person is. And it's not for us to judge them. And as Christians, I mean, we were raised very strong Christian beliefs. It was to help people when you can. I mean, there was times where we had like very limited money, yet my parents showed us the importance of, hey, let's go get a bag of groceries and go drop it off to so-and-so's house. And we would go put it on the front doorstep, and we would knock, and then we'd run and we'd hide like in the bushes or behind trees or whatever, and to make sure that they got the groceries. And you know what? My parents did that. They never told anybody that we did that for them. They never. So if somebody's listening and you're about my parents' age and you knew Pat and Mary Dinnell and you randomly got groceries, that was Mary and Pat Dinnell's idea. We would do that all the time. And my parents never wanted the credit for it because they just knew it was the right thing to do. But going back to what we're saying is like, I'd love for you to actually just dive deeper on your thoughts on the whole, you know, why would you, like, don't judge people on what they're doing, because one, they're doing something, they're taking action. And do you believe that that mindset has also helped you be successful in business because it's removed like preconceived ideas and any limitations?
It's definitely the best way that I've learned to surround myself with genuine people in business. Right. In the industry that I'm in, it's technology. You're growing up in Silicon Valley. You're exposed to a lot really smart people, 1,000 times smarter than you are, and they're in the. And I don't think it goes for everyone, but generally, they care about your credentials. My first sort of real job out of college and whatnot, everyone sits around and they're talking about, where'd you go to school? I went to Brown. It's like, I went to Harvard. I went to Stanford. Where'd you go? I went to San Francisco State. And I started off at a junior college. And there's a certain level of that I think it's just the way some children are brought up. It's not definitely, but I never shared any previous background. So that's all they know, right? They just know that it's this kid that just went to a state school. But the funny thing is, we're in the same job.
Yeah, let's go,
right?
baby. Let's go.
We're in the same job. And, my dad told me something a long time ago that it stuck early on. He said, son, I'm going to give it to you straight. Like, just in the way he would say it, I want to tell you, you're not the smartest kid. You really are not. There are some smart kids, you're not. But there's one thing that you will do that's going to be better than all of them. I'm like, what's that? You're going to work harder than all of them. It's like, oh, okay. And that was my attitude about everything. I did well in academics in school. It's not because I was smart. It was because if somebody put in 1 hour, I put in 3. If somebody, there were some really smart kids. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are folks who are like, wow, I wish my brain was just wired that way. But there was also me at, 1 or 2 in the morning still reading something that I couldn't understand. And I just prayed that it would make sense to me at some point. It's kind of one of those like, yeah, I'm just going to go through this. And at some point it's going to make sense, I hope. Right. But you just keep that. And it was not fun. It was not good. It wasn't fun. And it was difficult because here's the difference between my grandpa and my dad. He would look at me sit at a table and say, he's not doing anything, right? There's no sweat. There's no toiling around. Like for him, labor equals work. And then my grandpa will look at me and say, you have no idea what's going on there. He's working way harder than you think, right? The mental challenge of doing something that difficult sometimes is actually harder than the physical way you're looking at it. So you like 2 different ways of looking at it, and I appreciate those both points of view.
Yeah.
Right. And I did well. I stayed out of trouble, got good grades. I mean, I did the normal things you would do as a kid, but I never let any of that stuff limit me to anything, like, especially when it comes to people. I mean, who am I to ever judge anyone? From my background, so whenever I meet anyone, no matter what the circumstance, I bring it down to like the lowest common factor, which is we're both humans and working and trying to just get by sometimes.
Let's go.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. I speak to people that way. I love interacting with people that way. And I love people who genuinely also believe in that, because then you get rid of all the other folks. They're just not attracted to, you and how you look or what you drive, or like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. Like I truly don't. I could blend into those environments, but I don't really care. I really don't. It's like, and good friendships have come out of that, and people that went on to do really good things in life. And I think good things doesn't equal like incredibly financially successful. Good things meant that they were just great people that did enough to be super happy. And I'm like, man, I'm like, the number of people that I've met in my line of work that I would say, financially successful that are absolutely miserable. It's mind-boggling. It's like, so how long you've been with it's my third marriage. What happened? You go, well, and then you get to know, you're like, well, I work a lot. I travel a lot. It's really difficult to keep a marriage, and I get it. It's difficult. I've been with my wife since we were 15. I made a conscious decision to get out of that, because you do get into a rat race. Like my first business, I had worked for many companies, and I was 7 minutes from my house, the office, but I would always come back late. And I had my son, he was young, and I just remember looking at him and going, at the time I believed in the mission, which was go make a lot of money. Right? And everything I told myself was that. But deep down, it was hurting me. I was really in pain. I was not happy. I tried to do the corporate thing, which was, climb that ladder, run that rat race, and work harder. I mean, all of those things still applied, but at the same time, it's like I have no joy in my life at this point. And after going through some really dark periods where I remember businesses, failing, and there was an episode where we lost our home, and it was the most difficult time that I've ever experienced, because when you're going through tough things for yourself, I can deal with it. My wife is incredibly strong. She doesn't look at things the same way in terms of how, I think for me, it was programmed, like you provide. And that was the instruction, right? Like you do what you can to provide. And she always looked at it differently. Like, I get that, but our happiness should be above that. I said, well, you can't eat happiness, baby. I was like, you can't have happiness for dinner. Like,
happiness doesn't pay our bills.
Yeah. Well, you struggle, and I get her point, right?
No, yes. She is right.
Yeah. You get the point. And everything I had worked for, bought a house, taken away, collectors, everything. And it wasn't bad for myself, but then at this point I had a child, and it changes your life. Like it changes. Anybody with children would say the same thing. It absolutely changes your life, because you have another human you have to care for, that you just love beyond yourself. You have no idea how it happened, but boy, you love this thing that's so small, and yet somehow you just love. And then I went through some really, really difficult periods where we walked, we'd pace around the block. I'd walk, and I'm a nervous wreck. At this point, I think, seeing counseling now. I'm on anti-anxiety medication, and my health was taking a toll. And I started equating to, like, what is the program? Like, why is all of this happening? And we had to reprioritize. But at the same time, like, there's an inner drive that I recognize that I will do this. If not for me, for my parents. I'm motivated to do things more for other people than myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you know that about yourself, it's okay. Then do that. Right? Because in that process, you will also uplift yourself. And I'm okay with that. And I wanted to, any child really, like for me, it's like, I want to either retire your parents or pay off their house, right? Like that's the normal thing. But it doesn't happen easily. It doesn't happen quickly. And I had come to I had started some businesses that failed. And granted, I'm kind of one of those guys that will take action at the time before doing any kind of research.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's a problem. I said, I looked around one day. I said, look, all these vending machines. They must be making money while you're sleeping. of course, right? And I'm thinking, I should do this so my parents don't have to go and do what they're doing, and they can just kind of replenish these machines. I'm going to start a vending business, hon. She's like, what? She's like, you don't know anything about it. And I said, I know. I'm going to do it anyways. So, of course, you load up your credit cards, you do things, and then you find out, boy, this industry is very different than what I'm used to.
It's cutthroat.
It is very.
And to get a contract on a location on the vending machine and the rights, yeah.
Oh, I had some really interesting competition. I would say, I will tell this story because it's really interesting. I had someone call me and said, "Hey, you took my machine out of this one place." I said, "What do you mean?" The owners of the complex said it was okay, so I removed it. He goes, "No, you stole my machine." Heavy Russian accent.
Oh shoot!
And
yeah.
I'm like, Of course, I am early 20s, full of just
inspiration.
Inspiration is probably the best way of thinking about it.
Danny Zeem's like, yeah, that was the title to Danny Zeem's.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I was like, that is an incredibly wonderful word to use for that age. I think anybody in that time is inspired.
Yeah,
right.
For all aspects
for all, yeah. And here I am just having it out with him on the phone, and he's threatening. Do you know who I am? I go, of course not.
Which makes it even better. Which makes it even better. Where you're like, no,
you know,
clearly you know who I am.
You stole my machine, and you're gonna have to pay. And I can't mimic accents, and I would not try to. But I'm just trying to paint a picture. By the way, it's not any particular like phrase. It's just I'm painting the picture. This is what happened. Okay,
dude, it's a Russian dude.
Yeah,
so we get it.
Yeah, so he comes heavy, loaded accent. He's threatening me, and of course, nope. And at some point, I remember coming back to him. Oh, so you think you have rights because what? You're an immigrant, and you think you're from the old country, and you have these things and rules. I said, don't care. You're talking to one too, right? So let's get to the end of this. Whatever you need to do, go do it. Right? I kid you not. No. This was like,
I love this.
Crazy. Because July 4th, just got back from a friend's house. Fireworks, beautiful time, little liquor, go home. I'm like in shorts in bed. Wife's in bed. Like we're just hanging out, and then I hear a knock on the door. Of course, I'm an idiot for putting my home address as my business address, right? I'm an idiot.
That's amazing.
The guy knocks on my door, and of course, like, who's knocking on my door? I'm coming out. I'm looking like American history, or like that scene when you walk.
Yeah, you're wearing boxer briefs.
I'm coming out, right? I'm coming out, and this guy was, taller. He was somewhat intimidating, but whatever. At this point, right? Yeah. Whatever. I looked at my wife, and she's like, honey, don't go out there. I said, what do you mean, don't go out there? He's on my lawn. I don't know what he wants. He's that guy that's been calling you. I go, I know, but we have to get to the end of this, or he's going to keep coming back, right? And that's when you the fight or flight thing.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, there are many ways to resolve this situation, by the way. Many more wonderfully calm ways of thinking about it as an adult. But back then, no. I get out, I walk out there. And of course, words were exchanged. And at one point, I just look at him, and he's looking at me, and he knew any step further was not going to be a good thing. Like, I just had this thing in my mind, like my protection instincts were
through the roof.
Yeah. High alert. My wife's behind me.
Oh yeah.
Right? This is before a kid, but she's behind me. You're not getting through.
Yeah.
Right?
We will end your ability to
to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To breathe.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
And I had already figured out the entire how it was going to go down, because at this point everything was in slow mo.
Yes.
Right. And my dad had always, growing up, never let me back down from a fight. He has never. He would stand there and go, "Oh, I saw that kid pick on you. Don't come in the house. Oh, he's going to do that tomorrow. I better go see you go out there and have a talk with him."
Yeah.
And, that's the way he was wired, right?
Yeah.
But I think, for this day and age, that's not how we handle things now. But back in the 80s, early 90s, it's just how things were done culturally. It's like, and there's some.
Well, there also wasn't. This situation, there might have been the risk of a gun, but back then, that wasn't the case. You handled business, and most of the time, people could actually be like, "All right, I guess we're good now," and then they would actually be fine and cordial, and they could some people actually develop friendships after that type of stuff. But it's definitely a different time frame.
It was a different time,
100%. But as you're saying these things, I'm thinking of it from like the learning objective is your dad taught you to finish the job and not allow people to run over you, because if you allowed people just to run over you, that would take away from your ability to have been a good husband, a good father, and grow businesses and ultimately impact other people's lives for the better. So that's the takeaway I'm hearing from that. But I love this story. Keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's great. It's it was.
So what happened?
Well, what happened was there was a.
Yeah. Did you survive?
Clearly. Did he?
Well, he just became quiet because I became quiet. At some point, we stopped yelling, and I just stopped yelling. I just stopped. 100% just looked at him, didn't say another word. As he kept going, he realized I'm not talking anymore. That means I'm done. And he just decided to walk away. And I am so grateful for that. He decided to walk away. Never called me again.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the oddest thing. I don't know what lessons could be learned other than I could have handled it so many different ways better, but
okay, so let's pull the thread on that. I think there's actually a lot of lessons there. Okay, one, like you're saying, you could have handled it differently. For sure. You definitely could have been like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. The business owners told me that I could remove this. Where would you like me to deliver it to?" Like, yes, that immediately, if we go back there, but hindsight is 20/20. We can do that for everything in life. It's like, well, I could have done that. Yeah. I think the lesson that I enjoy is what your father taught you about not backing down. And I don't want that being taken as I'm telling you that our listeners like, "Hey, you need to go have your kids go outside and fight people." But you know what? My dad had almost every weekend, we'd have sleepovers at our house and we would box. My dad had boxing gloves and the kids would box and if they wanted to. And a lot of my friends, they wanted to scrap and we would scrap. And I was the smallest one. So I was getting rocked all the time. But my dad would always, "Nope, back in there. My buddy Kyle Franklin was massively larger than me. In high school, we played I played 1 year of football. And I was like 145 pounds. Kyle weighed 333 pounds. Double my weight. He was a big guy.
That's a big dude.
It's a mastodon at that age.
Yes. As a junior.
He's a Neanderthal.
As a junior, yes. And he's such a good dude. That's Kyle Franklin, one of my best friends growing up. Yeah. I like the old school group of those guys: Mike Rios, Kyle Franklin, Anthony DiRigolo, Chris Montgomery, Robert Kendricks, all those guys. Robert Inquist, who actually went all the way through like high school and San Diego together. So, anyways, those guys, and they were all a lot bigger than me. Aaron Bobier, wasn't taller than me, but he was always bigger, scrap. So I would get my butt kicked by all of my friends every weekend, every Friday night, every Saturday. And then my dad would have me box the newspaper guy. So the guy that was bringing the newspaper, I would have to box this guy. And so, yeah, this kid who's 16, 17 years old delivering newspapers, now I'm having to box him. And it wasn't because he ever wanted me, obviously, to get hurt. And I'm thankful that my dad did that. I am so thankful that my dad made me do those things, because at a young age, I had to learn to be like, all right, cool. One, the size of that person actually doesn't matter. It could come into play, but big picture, it doesn't matter. And if you go in there and you dig deep and you fight, you can come out on top. And so I'm thankful that my parents did that. And it was great memories. And me and my buddies would talk about it. He's like, bro, I care. Yeah, your dad would make the ring with the hose. Like, we'd use the garden hose for the ring. And so as you're saying, like, these things that your dad made you do, there's so many just threads that we can pull and lessons that you can take from that define who you are. You learn not to back down to somebody. And in business, you were saying it's cutthroat. Would you agree?
Yes.
How many times have people tried to push you over in business and you knew, hey, guess what? It ain't going to happen.
Oh, I have
hundreds of examples, maybe,
Yeah,
if not thousands.
I've dealt with it in a different way, meaning it's not as physical, right? In terms of the threats.
Yes, and we don't
Yes.
want things
Yeah,
to get physical.
yeah. But like
We're
in
losing.
business, it's still a very competitive environment, no matter what kind of business you start, right?
Yeah.
And there are, I think, lessons to be learned from that, which is if you are solid inside, like you're strong and you will stand up, you will find ways to get through something versus, oh my goodness, everything's attacking me. And I think that is probably the biggest thing. My father never allowed us to accept that. And I think that was, maybe it was the environment, that we grew up in, the way he was wired as well. It's just, you don't accept it. You don't accept things you can change, right? We can change our circumstances. We can change the way we see something. And, if you're getting picked on, I was a small little Asian kid. I mean, I was not heavy, big, intimidating in any way, which made it easy for, bullies to want to do that. But he's like, I don't care. You're gonna stand up for yourself, right? No one's gonna do it for you.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sets you at a core, right? We grew up. Am I Gen X? I guess I'm Gen X. We just grew up differently.
No, I think Gen X is. Wait, are you Gen X?
I think so.
I thought Gen X was after the millennials.
No,
No, it's before.
It's before.
the millennials.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm on the cusp. I think. I
Yeah.
guess allegedly I'm both.
Yeah.
You're an ex-lineal.
I'm the hybrid.
You're between like 80 and or like 78 and 85 is kind of when that ex-lineal group is.
I'm a hybrid. I'm a daywalker.
Yeah, daywalker. But but it's true that we did grow up. Like I see these memes, and I'm like, yeah, I remember that, drinking from the hose and
It was
playing outside.
amazing.
It was great, and you got into fights and you shook hands. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was just the way it was back then. Nobody brought out guns or any of that stuff. Like you didn't have to settle it that way as children.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. But, back to our original conversations around business, I think there was definitely a lot of, I know there were a lot of failures, a lot of times where I had, over leveraged things that it probably should never, and it got us in a situation financially to try to recover it, which is why a lot of times I say it's okay to fail, but make sure you have time to recover. Like you have it has to be done at the right moment. And I always remember this story where my neighbor across the street, he worked at PG&E for his entire career, and his dream was to open up a restaurant. This guy is incredible. He served in Vietnam. At night, he patrols outside his house. I used to wonder, who is that? Like, what is he doing? And then I talked to the family. He's like, it's the way he has to. He's just wired. He came back, a different person, and he patrols in front of his house. And I got to know him, got to hear the stories, and he took a liking towards us, and it was great. At first, it was kind of his trepidation, and flashbacks and all this good stuff. But
Oh, geez, I didn't even think of that.
yeah, here's,
Okay.
it's really interesting.
that's
like
interesting.
our growing up was very interesting. I mean, we were like the first Asian family in the entire sort of few blocks that were predominantly Hispanic. So you're like, it's just so different. Like I just had a completely different view of the world. And I met him, hung out a little bit. We would always talk when he was out there doing his patrols and smoking and hanging out. And he told me, he's like, his dream was to open a restaurant. And he retired and he opened a restaurant. He leveraged his house, opened this restaurant. A year later, did not make it. And that's statistically normal.
Yeah.
But for someone in their 60s to do that, right? It's tough. It's tough seeing that. It's tough, and that taught me a really valuable lesson. It was like, it's okay to start things. It's okay to fail, but just know that, it's not like have a backup plan. It's just like you need time to recover, and certain moments in your life. That's why you guys practice so much for when the real thing happens.
Yeah.
Right. I fail a lot so that when the real thing happens, I don't have to. Right. And that's so important. And I did a lot of the failing part of it early on in my life, where I could withstand some of these really blunt force trauma to our situation. And at some point, there was a very specific day I just said, I'm done. We have 2 kids now, and I can't continue on this rat race. I quit my job, came home, just had it, like, mentally, physically drained, fighting this fight to climb this ladder and, all these things. And I spoke to Jeanette. I said, I quit my job today. She didn't even blink. She said, okay. And waited for me to talk.
I need your wife on our podcast, because there's a lot of women that are listening that are probably like, I need to learn from this woman.
Mm-hmm. She's...
Yeah,
we really overshot our coverage.
We all did.
Oh my goodness!
Clearly, we all
happened?
are
what happened?
Phenomenal at sales, and just went for something that did not make sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So
you picked me.
quit. Yeah.
What?
Cool. Let's solidify this before you change your mind.
No. Yeah, I know. Right.
So you quit. She's like, all right.
Mm-hmm. But there's been build up, and she saw just the frustration and such, and I think a lot of people go through that in their careers, like going through. And she waited. I said, I'm concerned. We don't have any income. We have 2 kids. I am supposed to provide. I am all these things. And I broke down. I was like, but I can't do it. All right. I can't do it, which is the first time I say that about anything. Like, it just was that point. Because I felt I was giving up so much, and I said, like, look at what's happening. We both are working. What was our dream? To raise our children. Like, we wanted to raise our children, not a daycare provider.
Yeah.
We wanted to teach our children. Look who's teaching my kid. It's wonderful. The little guy came back speaking Spanish. Wonderful. Not okay. He had the worst attitude, like, for like a 3-year-old. And I'm like, where's he picking this up from? Right. And it was from the daycare providers who are just, not
ideal.
Yeah. Not ideal. And I'm like, look at it. Like, we are not raising our own children. Like, that's not what I wanted. And so she said to me, what would be the ideal job? We spoke about it. We went through all these conditions, and I gave her a very specific list of things. I went through the whole thing, and she says, well, that doesn't exist. What you're asking for doesn't exist out there. If you want that, you got to create it. I was like, oh, go create it. I was like, but we have no money. Like, I need to get a job. She's like, I trust you will find it. You will be able to do it. And I'm like, oh. And I started my first company. Well, not the first company, but the first successful one, I guess.
Yeah.
Digital Pie And I was in tech, right? So it was a very techie thing. And I'll briefly describe what it is for those, for our listeners. It's in B2B. And what that means is, imagine you buy something from Amazon. We don't have to imagine. We all do that today.
Yeah. So B2B is business to business.
That's correct.
Okay.
Business to business. If you were a business buying from Amazon, instead of buying one chair, desk chair, you would buy thousands of desk chairs.
Okay.
Right? You don't buy one ream of paper. You buy
just
a boatload of paper, right, for all the offices. And that's B2B. Amazon has a B2B. Every business that's selling to other businesses has a division like this. My initial sort of history, how I got into this, was late 90s. I'm in tech. There was this little company called Google. Like, it was so small. It's funny. I went to their offices at the time, little dinky place in Mountain View. I come in and they had a giant table. I was talking to the HR person, and I'm sitting on these giant like medicine balls. It was the first time I'm in a conference room talking to someone sitting on a medicine ball. At the time, I was like, "Whoa, this is different."
yeah.
And it was actually for my first job. So I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. I'm sitting there looking, and I see tents in the back, like little camping tents all the way in the back. Everything's great. I walk out. I say, "What are those tents?" That's unusual for an office building. She goes, "Well, we hire young folks like yourself, and our young folks love to hang out. They love to, eat together, go out, have fun together. We're building a great company, all this stuff. And we provide a place for them to stay."
So there's
Right.
staff members that are homeless actually hang out together.
Hang out. They, to me, that translated to 100-hour weeks. Like, you don't leave, right? And of course, I get home. Oh. And Jeanette says, "Well, if you want a relationship, that probably won't work out." I'm like, "Well, there it is. I'm not taking that job." Right? There's my Google whatever, right? Early on. Like, we're just talking early on. It could have been great, but whatever. Right?
Could have, should have, would have.
But it's okay. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
So, get back to B2B. I had learned search engine optimization. I had my first initial career path was really like in this company. Still exists today, called Real Time Innovations in Sunnyvale. Stan, the CEO, Stan Schneider, if you're listening, you're awesome. He said to me, he's like, "Look, we sell to military aerospace. We sell real-time middleware." I go, "Oh, what is that?" He's like, "Well, let me put it this way really simply. If you push a button and the instructions are open hatch, fire missile, close hatch, it has to happen that way. And at the time I push the button, that's real time." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so this was during a time when, I believe at this point it was Iraq. There were, the whole global information grid, Rumsfeld was a big and upgrading the entire technology infrastructure of the military.
Yeah.
So our stuff was in the first, I believe, drones. There was the initial testing for that stuff, which was the DARPA challenge, which was robotics in the Mojave Desert. They had to be able to drive themselves 100 miles. The first year, some of the schools didn't even make it, and then more and more these robots were able to make the distance. So, I'm involved, and they said, "Look, I can't call into the branches and say, 'Hey, would you like to buy our software?' Right? That's not how that works." But they find us through this thing called Google. I'm like, "Oh." So, and mind you, I don't have any clue about tech at this point. I didn't. okay, what are we, I need them to be able to find us, like what we do on this thing. I'm like, okay. And I got really involved in search engines and all, like the first initial and it was going well. And that's my sort of break into tech and learning that, not everything in the world is sold directly to a consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So back to just B2B, I got involved in this really small at the time concept called marketing automation, which is I'm going to put in infrastructure for everything you do in your marketing and track it back to what is really creating the revenue. Because prior to this, ads, everything, you had no way of tracking it. It was just like, I think it did this, right? Well, I don't need you to think it did that. I want you to prove it did it, right? And so this was the first sort of marrying like the marketing and the automation and this whole concept of personalization that's coming up. So everything you're getting now is very tailored to you. It's hyper personalization now. But back then it was just trying to create a process for weeding out everyone. It's like before you go to a car dealership to buy and you're configuring your vehicle online, these little tools they're providing, they're trying to get a sense of what you want. They're checking the inventory. By the time you get there, they know almost everything about you before you even step in.
Wow.
And they pretend they don't. Like at the time we had trackers that could tell me what you looked at, what you're interested in. I know you even know, I got your name, but when I call you, I won't say, I was like, hello, I won't tell you. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of work we did. And that's the sort of work that I really specialized in for the last 10 years and made a great business out of it. I really love what I do. And I created a process standardization for it. And a lot of the larger ad agencies, they're losing revenue. People are not doing ads the way they used to anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was a big thing. And many of them made offers. We ended up getting acquired by a larger agency.
Yeah.
I had signed on for 3 years.
Yeah. So for our listeners that don't fully understand that, you built up this company and then a larger company is like, hey, we want you. We want everything that you've done, everything that you built, just literally your business. They bought that business from you. But part of the agreement was you had to stay on running that business. Correct. And integrating it into their big business for 3 years.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
That is correct.
Awesome. I just wanted, I knew that. I just wanted our listeners to fully understand that. And that's really awesome because they saw the value of you, Ryan Vong. Because you had built this great company that obviously provided incredible value for them to, hey man, crappy companies don't get acquired. Let's just be real. Yeah. Like there's the value. And then they saw the value of what you're going to do in 3 to 5 to 7 years, whatever that variable is that you sold for, which we don't have to get into obviously, but they saw like, okay, hey, here's what he's producing. Here's what it's going to continue to do for 3, 5, 7 years. Here's what we're going to offer you. We're also going to pay you or however they negotiate it. We're going to keep you on board for 3 years because a company that did that to Ryan's company for our listeners, they're looking at 10 to 15 years down the road of what that's going to produce. It's going to offset that investment of what they purchased, and they're going to grow and build it, and then they're going to hopefully turn around and sell it to somebody else down the road.
Well, these folks were in the traditional sort of customer experience business, and what that means is, again, if you think about what's involved in marketing anything, right? It's creative, it's branding, it's content, and now there's the third part, which is customer experience, which is all the technology side of it. And B2B or business to business is these are large dollars, maybe smaller transactions versus lots and lots of consumers, right? It's a different motion. They wanted to start and build the world's largest B2B agency. We were one of 5 companies that were brought together to create this vision that they had.
Wow.
And
What an honor for you.
It was incredible. I started the company back to when my wife said, what did you want, to build? Right. And I said, well, I don't want it to be location or specific, meaning landlocked. And anyway, I believe talent can come from anywhere. And we only get people from the valley here, which is jaded and, all this other stuff. And I say, I don't care. Talent can come from anywhere. I want people to never miss anything that they, have promised their families. It was so important to me because that's what I missed. I said it is a company that will allow for that. It's a company that is going to be completely remote because I believe that buildings with, a logo and everything only serves the egos of the people who created it. I just did not see that being a necessary thing.
That's awesome.
We can collaborate. And this is before work from home, remote work was even popular. Most people told me I was going to fail because you couldn't get people together like that. This was, it was just 10 years ago, if you think about it, right?
Wow.
Who would talk about that 10 years ago? They were like, oh, you're not going to make it. This doesn't sound right. And you're not going to see your employees. How do you trust them, right? All of these things. And I also wanted a company that was driven by spirit. And it can mean whatever, you want it to be. It wasn't religion specific, but you had to believe in something greater than yourself. And of course, you can't ask those things in an interview.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You can do anything once, but yeah.
But
We're not supposed to, for the sustainability of your company, HR reasons.
And our company was run by that, work, life, spirit. 3 core principles was what I incorporated. It's the first slide you'll ever hear any employee I ever spoke to, talk to. That is how I begin, is work, life, spirit. And the best experiences of my time there was when, someone came up to me and it was touching. She said, I've never been a place where I could be on a field trip with my daughter, promise her I'll be there and know that I'll be there and know that I won't be thinking about work. And this is the first time that I felt that. I was like, oh my gosh. Still, to this day.
That is such a great.
Till this day. Those things get you. And I get choked up by that stuff because,
You should, man. And you should be proud of that because you've created an opportunity for people that most people will never experience. The fact of you being able to say that you had an employee tell you that is absolutely incredible, and you should be incredibly proud of that. I'm so proud of you, man, because that's something that's not an option. That's not an option for a lot of people to be able to go to a field trip and just know that you can be there and not worry about work. Like, I know how powerful that statement is because you're emotional about that, and you should be. Really should be, because that's impact, man. And you created impact for. So if you think about the ripple effect, how many employees did you have at your height or total throughout the year? Do you know?
92.
Okay, so 92. So you probably had some throughout the years that you had, turnover. Mm-hmm. So over 100 people. Mm-hmm. The average household in America has how many kids? 2 to 3?
2. Let's
say 2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you're talking hundreds of people, right? And so now the spouses.
Yeah.
So you're talking anywhere between 200 to 500 people have been impacted at a minimum by the environment that you created so that people could create memories and experiences with their families. And if you really look at it big picture, the ripple effect, what that has to their grandkids and to their kids, because now that's a new standard that people say, well, hold on, my mom never missed a field trip. Yeah. My dad was at every single one of my things. And that's the thing I've been struggling with is I'm very thankful for everything I get to do, but I've also missed a lot. Now, I also know that you've missed some things over the years because it's what's required with growing a business. But now I'm at this point where I'm having to throttle back stuff. And that's the talks I've been having with Jocko and Leif. It's like, okay, hey, how do I keep building and growing and expanding while not missing everything? You know, Aiden's a senior. This is his last year of wrestling in high school. And last night I was looking at the calendar on my flight home and looking at all of his schedule, and I just literally, I made sure I had all these things blocked off. I've done it, but I had to make some adjustments. And I think it's cool, and it's so powerful and incredible, Ryan, what you created for not just your employees, but their kids. And there's going to be a handful of them where that's the new standard. And when they get to the point where they're a part of a company, there might be some people that, because of what you did, it's going to inspire them to grow a company where they can create the same thing.
I sure hope so. And
I would bet there's at least one person that will, if not a listener right now that's listening. No, you know what's crazy is there is a listener that, whether it's listening to it this Friday that this came out or in the future, there will be somebody that's going to create the same thing that you created because of the impact. Because when you really look at that, bro, I'm like, dude, how do I create a company that does that?
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. And I think when I left, you know, they put together an e-card, and some of the things are on there was just incredible. And they don't have to say it, you know, and they did, and they took the time to. And some of them got back to me, said, I didn't write on your e-card because I wanted to have the time to actually write this. Wow. And what they wrote was just, it was the idea, you know, that we had, and and when they say that, it was like, oh, we accomplished it.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Now, you know, I sold it we completed the deal in 2020.
What a unique time.
Yeah. 2 months, like, so the end of January, 2 months right before COVID. And this is where a lot of the Echelon Front, the online stuff really came into play.
Extreme Ownership Academy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Extreme Ownership Academy. And I signed up. This was a very interesting time because we just got acquired. Everybody's happy. I vetted out the culture of the company that was acquiring us, and it felt similar. But then COVID happened. And as a acquiree or somebody getting acquired, you commit to plans that are out 3 years, and you commit to growth rates. You commit to numbers. You commit.
Oh, shoot, man.
Right? And 2 months later, the world changed. You just sold it. The world changed. Your projections don't make any sense anymore. Well, what do you do? Right? What do you do? And it's a rude awakening at that point. You were happy for a second, and then you have to think about what this new world's going to look like. You know, luckily the core of our culture was so incredibly strong that it didn't affect us from that perspective, because we had already worked from home for 7 years, and we had already built, you know, a sort of a decentralized command. Yeah. And I use, it's funny, I say that a lot in our meetings, and sometimes it gets, I meet up with older, you know, previous colleagues, like last week at a conference, and she's like, I said, somehow it came up to, I had someone come up to me, which is in our industry, but I've never met her. And she said, I spoke to a few of your employees, past employees. The only thing that comes through is like how great your leadership was. I'm like, really? They said that? Like, they don't even work for me anymore, right?
That's awesome, man.
I was like, she goes, just by that, I wanted to come meet you and say hi. I'm like, okay, you know, like, great. This is, what did they say? Yeah. Right? Like, but it was always when we had a team call or something, we'd always talk about that. Like, it was not necessarily, you know, doom and gloom and all this stuff. It's more about like, what do we do now? Now that we're here, here's the situation, right? And Dave Burke talks about the OODA loop.
Yeah.
You know, observe, orient, decide, act, right? You got to cycle faster than everyone.
Yes.
Right? It's huge.
Yes.
It's huge. You know, we have that in software development as well, which is why it's like incredible to hear it, you know, somewhere outside of what I know. It's like I learned a lot. Like as a fighter pilot, I listened to this story. I'm like, oh yeah, that actually, this is exactly, we iterate quickly. We had to turn faster than, I said that to our executive team. Like, and they're non-military people. And so it's like a foreign concept when I say decentralized command. They're like, what is happening? Are you
trying to militarize our company? You're like, no,
it's like,
come on.
No. I'm trying to say that we should give responsibilities to leaders and grow them.
And empower them.
And
that's what
empower
decentralized
them.
command is.
Yeah.
It's empowerment.
I know. So we took a company and created a pod structure where, you know, you imagine you had like at the time 50 something people, and I had too many people reporting to me. Let's create a structure, a decentralized command structure, which is a leader within a group. They're going to autonomously own their goals. We have a company goal, and you know, typically management decides, oh, here's what everyone gets. I said, nope, we're going to have a company goal. If we hit the goal, here's how these things are. You guys tell me how you want to divide it, right? And then it puts the onus on them so that they can't. If you think about it, if you get something you're unhappy about, you're always going to say, oh, they made that decision for me. But if I say, here's our goal, and if you guys accomplish it, how do you want to do this? They all have to agree, and then everybody owns the decision. So no one gets to complain about it, right? It's not Ryan's decision that everybody gets less this time, right? And I would go through the same exercise I go through with anybody. We didn't make our commitments. We have to do something to change that. What do you suggest, right? Well, and then it gets down to a very real thing. Like, that means we have to let go of people? I'm like, oh, that decision is really difficult. Is that what you want to do? Right? Because that's what I would have to think about.
Yes.
So what do you think about? And so it was really, for the first time, I really wanted to empower our team to make decisions, because you have to. At this point, the world's chaotic, going crazy. You don't know where it's going. You need to empower and trust. So we went through the entire I think we went through like all the laws of combat in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it was incredible. And we went through cover and move. I was everywhere. It was at that point, I said to someone, I said, how are you going to get yourself out of that situation if that's all you're dealing with every day? You know, remember what we talked about? And I would post it on the thing, and you know, here's a book you guys should really think about reading. Yeah. And some of them took the challenge, and you know, again, you can't force it, but if they come to it, it's great.
Yeah.
And it was the way we got through the entire COVID experience was incredible. There was, you know, were decisions about, you know, cutting and whatever. I said, you know, I'm going to lay this out, because our executive team, you know, Tom, Ari, Bill, Jeff, guys, like, there's a very real conversation in there. Like, hey, our parent company wants us to cut. I said, this is COVID. If you truly believe that this company is a company built with a family-centered philosophy, would you kick your family member out when times are tough? No. So we can't fire anyone. Find another way. Find another way. Like, I don't want people to suffer when the uncertainty's out there. They have families. Like, I always told people, I said, we didn't employ 50 people. We employed 50 families.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't kick them out. And the team did an incredible job just being creative, coming up with things that were valuable to the clients. The clients were amazing. I mean, these are, you know, first rule I always took was don't take clients that your team does not like to work with. Because guess what? They're going to hate their job.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And if they like the client, they're going to be vested in the success of the client, you know, way more than they would be if it was just a job, right? Because it's a people business, no matter how you look at it. right? Business to business is really people to people, just in larger groups. And that was really important. These are sort of, core things that really helped us get through it. So that was it's quite the experience. It was, fresh because I just left this year.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to stay out for 2 years.
Yeah, right. Come on now.
No.
So what are you doing now?
Well, 2 months ago,
Let's go.
I started my next company called Helix CXM. It's
Can you spell that?
Yeah, HELIX CXM.
Okay.
.com.
Okay.
Helix. And it took me a little bit, but it's essentially data operations for revenue teams, which is the best way to describe it is this. We are a water company. We come and we build the infrastructure for water to get to a neighborhood. In your house, when you need water, you turn on a tap and it's fresh, clean water. Mm-hmm. You don't care what kind of chemicals were used to refine that water, filtrate the water. You just know that by the time it gets to you, it's super clean and you can drink it and you feel comfortable with the water you can shower with, right? Like it's a utility. But instead of water, we pipe in pristine data. We connect all these different systems and all their bad data we clean up and we keep it clean so that you always have data on tap when you need it, like pristine data. And it is an incredibly accelerated sort of marketplace. You guys hear a lot of talk about AI or artificial intelligence and generative AI, which really means that we are feeding these learning algorithms. Right? Like in order to generate intelligence, you have to feed it lots and lots of data. The problem right now is there's so much being produced. AI is very confident in its answer. It could be right, but it could also be wrong. Mm-hmm. It really depends on the cleanliness of the data you feed it and what you're teaching it. Right? It's kind of like anything. Like if you teach it.
Yeah, like that's anything in life.
Anything
that's
in
amazing.
Life. So I wanted to solve it at the root of the problem. And I'll have to take you back a few months ago when I left and I said, oh yeah, I'll take 2 years off. I unplugged from social media, from everything, deprivation of everything, no news, nothing. And sort of did coffee with my wife in the mornings. I went fishing. I called up some friends to do that in the middle of the week, not knowing that it was the middle of the week for them. They're like, hey, bro, it's Wednesday.
You're like, so?
Oh, yeah. I had forgotten
Didn't have to worry about it.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all look the same, right?
That's awesome.
It's like, what do you want to do tomorrow? So, that was the initial thing. And then we went to Thailand. Of course, you do the trip, right?
Yeah, well.
You do the long trip and you take a break, bring the kids. And of course, over there, and remember, sleep, like deprivation of all, and like I didn't hear anything. I don't know anything. Technology was unplugged. Like this is the first time my mind fully unplugged.
Wow.
And we were there in a cab and it was super, super busy. Like the traffic was ridiculous. And we just got stuck in traffic. I got 2 kids that were just hungry. Like, please get me some food.
Yeah.
We ended up in the subway. Long story short, it was an incredible experience, like riding the subway. And I had this like surreal experience that I was.
What city were you in?
It was in Bangkok.
Okay, Bangkok. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I had this surreal experience that like everything was on time. Everything, I was able to get to everywhere. And somehow my brain's like, hey, we're a data packet moving across a network. These buildings look like applications to me. And I'm having this real moment in the subway. And I look at Jeanette, I'm like, we're like packets of data moving. She's like, what are you talking about?
Oh my God. She's like, how much have you drank yet? You drink that Mekong whiskey.
So of course I came back and I just had to get this thing going. 2 months in, new business, all the same startup-y things all over again. But lots of lessons from the previous. So I'm excited to do this.
That's incredible. So what is your general demographic client base that you're looking for? Like, could you do what you're doing for Echelon Front? Like if we're like, hey, we want data to help promote our events, or because we have some new things at Echelon Front. Like we have an event coming up after the muster, it's incredible. And so what it is like people can come to the muster, and then right after the muster, we have a field training exercise that they get to go through. And then right after that, they spend a full day recapping the muster and the FTX. So you have the classroom, then you have the lab, which is the FTX, the field training exercise that we run. So someone can come, we call it the force multiplier, because it's just building upon, building upon, and building upon. So they come to the muster in San Diego. And this is only for muster attendees. So they come to the muster in San Diego, and then they get to attend the field training exercise. So a full day of all the hands-on application of our scenario-based leadership training. And then there's a full day of immersion with just Jocko, Leif, Dave Burke, and Jamie, and myself maybe, recapping the FTX lessons learned that built upon the muster. And so we're trying to just market, our marketing to that is social media, because we have a pretty strong social media. But is that something that like a company like Echelon Front could use your company to just get more refined data for our musters, for our client experience of doing workshops and keynotes with them, field training exercises, battlefield? Is that something, or are you more of like specialized? Are you in a unique market?
Right now, I'm in a unique market.
Okay.
Because of where I'm at now.
Got it.
And it's targeted to the folks that I've worked with in the last 10 years.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. But the end goal is that it's a unified data platform. Like,
okay.
I'm going to be unifying data operations for anything.
So one day Echelon Front, we can bring you on board.
Pharmaceuticals,
Little Cattle Co. We can, Little Cattle Co. Beef, like the other company I'm part of. We
Yeah.
can be like, all right, hey Ryan, how do we hire you to help us be better at this? Okay, awesome.
And in our the language I speak now is closely related to their problem, so they understand it, the jargon.
Okay.
But like if we go to pharmaceuticals, then there are different regulations around it, and I have to learn the use cases, like something like that. I'd say, what are you trying to get out of it? What is the goal? Are you trying to solve efficiency problems? Are you trying to, learn more about your attendees by bringing in their personal information in a place, right? So it's like, what is the strategy for doing that? Once I understand that, I can build you the entire sort of roadmap all the way through.
That's so intriguing.
That's my goal. And right now, next year, so right now we're in the first parts of these AI experimentation kind of companies. Mm-hmm. Next year, there will be tons of funding for data projects like this.
Got it.
And that's where, data preparedness is key. So that's sort of where I see the market going and why we're doing this. It's the first time everything just felt like an entire alignment. It's incredible. Like even the name of the company, it's like at the time it meant something, but not as much as it does now. Like the Helix or the double Helix is the imprint of information on how to create a human. And it's beautiful because it's the most efficient way I could imagine God creating information transfer.
Let's go.
And so, the Helix meant a lot to me. And so like heart, mind, everything connects in this one. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's 2 months in. But
I look forward to over the next couple years, just whenever you want to come back on and share more wisdom and life experience. Like I know our listeners are going to be like, hey, when's Ryan coming back on? Because that's just straight free knowledge. Man, that's incredible. Like I'm going to have to save all my questions for that for another time. And it's just very intriguing.
We have an AI expert now, though, so that's good.
Let's go.
We'll mine that data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucas, what do you have for Ryan?
Okay, so I got 3 questions, and I think I'll just start from where they were in the interview and kind of where it felt. The first, we talked about people looking down on others for job sets, right? And it's been one of the things that research has shown is that tends to be something that's generational. In this case, that if a dad owns a business or builds a business, the father that built the business doesn't look down on the janitor because he remembers what it was like to build the business. But his children and his grandchildren will, because all they've ever known is the success of the father, right? You're in a position now where you're successful and your children are only going to know the success that dad had and feel, I don't want to use the word entitlement, but they will feel like that is not only achievable for them, but that is the bar for them, right? So how do you, as a parent, teach your kids not to look down on people that have not yet experienced the success that you do and may not?
Humility. They must thank everybody they meet. They get one present for Christmas every year. Pick one. And normally it's not a thing. Like, meaning they don't go crazy with what they want. Sometimes they don't even think about it. And we just make sure that they understand what they have. And I always make them. Jeanette used to force this a lot until they're starting to get rebellious a little bit. But every night when we had dinner, she used to say, give me 3 things that you're grateful for. Just 3. Name it. And sometimes it's, I'm grateful I get to eat. I'm grateful there's food here. And I'm grateful you're my parents. Like, generic. Yeah, it's fine. The more they practice, the more they think about it. But it's a reminder. So I think humility is like important for anybody, especially children who just feel maybe they're entitled because of the way the parents like have taught them. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I really don't. Our children don't really fall into that at this point because they've never been brand led, meaning they don't want $1,000 sneakers or any of that stuff because we never taught them the value of it. Like we never, and they'll see, and I'm like, oh, does that look good? Do you like that? But this looks good on you too. And they don't, we really never did that. I guess it's just like part of the way I grew up. It was like, I love stuff from Target. I go to Ross. Like, it's like, the most
dude, Payless shoe store. Let's go.
Yeah. Uh-huh. But it's like, I didn't differentiate. And I don't really try to have expensive things, just because it's like, I don't need it.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it because the security of my family is way more precious to me. And, it's not that I don't do things, right? But, my wife is a big proponent of experiences. So most of our money is funneled in doing things together.
Yeah.
We've taken our children somewhere every year, except for the COVID years since they were born. So I have pictures of them growing up in different places around the world. And that's cool. That's what we do. No matter what it is, she never had we always are uncomfortable when friends will say, hey, let's go on a trip and it's adults only or something. I'm like, we might skip that. I don't ever want to leave my kids when I go somewhere. I want them with me. I want them to experience it. So it's really rare that we have any trips that are not family oriented. It's kind of like if our kids can't go, then we don't really need to go.
Interesting.
It's just something that, we have, remember, we left that whole world so that we can be with our children.
Yeah.
They're the most important thing to us, and I'm going to surround my life with it. So why try to move them out of there, So,
yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I like the idea that it's humility, because you do, like in the 80s and the 90s, the middle class grew.
Yes.
And I think as it grew, people got more used to like having the gadgets, like the video games and all of those kinds of things. And then that's sort of what led that. Well, that leads me to the next thing is, you talked a lot about your dad praising your effort and not your talent, right? Like you're not the smartest, but you are going to work the hardest. Well, JP and I have talked about this before. My wife is a psych major and is looking right now like how she's going to pursue her master's degree. And one of the studies that she brought up as we were having our kids is that we were going to praise effort over talent. Because like you can tell somebody, hey, you're smart, but if you don't couple that with hard work, then the group studies have shown that if you've got kids with similar IQs, then you praise one for being intelligent and another for working hard, that the one that you praise for working hard will continually experience success, or the one you praise for being intelligent their success will begin to diminish over time over the course of different tasks. So you said that was something that your dad did. How do you, as a business leader, praise somebody's efforts, or is that something that you do in order to try to make your company and your businesses successful?
I look for the people that actually will fail. I even ask it in interview questions, something they wouldn't know and can't answer. What I'm looking for is, I don't know.
I like that.
But if I can go research that and get back to, I'm looking for that. The person that makes up the answer is the one I'm afraid of. Because I cannot trust anything they say at that point moving forward. And this is the first meeting, right? I also like hearing people that have grit, meaning they've gone through something, and it's not your generic answer. I can feel and sense grit when I hear it, right? It's like there's something steely about the thing that they're saying, and it's true and it's experienced, versus somebody saying, oh, these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, like very generic. I'm like, no. And so I can't trust somebody with $1 million project, right? If they've never failed. Yeah. Because the minute they do, they will crumble. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, I need those confidence builders. You cannot build confidence unless you fail. There's no other way. How do you build confidence? You failed. Now you know what that, like when you succeed, then you're confident, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how anybody gets confidence and never failed. Like, it's just like, it doesn't logically even make sense. So I look for those leaders. I surround myself with people that, that gone through things, overcome things. I love that. The ones that have never, I'm afraid. I'm just afraid, like what's going to happen. Because if your identity is, I'm super good at everything, the minute you meet somebody who's even better, because there is, what are you going to do? All of a sudden you have no identity, right? Versus your identity is, oh yeah, I'm going to work, because we're all going to work hard. Mm-hmm. We all have the same limited number of hours in the day. It's whether or not, what is that saying? Like, the enemy thanks you for not giving 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not that person. The enemy will never outwork me. Like, it just won't. It just won't happen. Like, I know it won't happen. It's just the way I'm wired. It's like,
I love that.
Right. And it's not, I wasn't born with this talent. I was just taught that. It's just, it's funny. Like, if you don't give that option as a way of thinking, getting out of something, you just don't think it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, oh, like, I didn't know that's not possible.
Like, well, yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is like, that's what I really liked, that your dad was like, no, go back outside and handle that.
Yeah,
handle that business. Yeah. Which he was teaching you, solve the problems. Now, whether that's talking through it, or there's a physical altercation, which we know that's not what we're wanting.
Yeah.
If it came to it, whatever, you did it, you learned from it. But the goal, I mean, I know you're not sending, and I'm not sending, my default response is never like, hey, Aiden, go beat up that person that was picking on you. I actually have taught Aiden how to work through problems. I told him, like, hey, here's an option. These kids are picking on you. You crush their face with an elbow as hard as you can, and then you go straight to the office, tell them to call me. I'm like, that is an option. However, here's the consequences to that. Yeah. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. You might get arrested because you hurt them. There's all these things, and you're going to have to live with that. I said, that's an option. However, here's better options for you. And then we role played through working through and de-escalating the conflict. And guess which option Aiden picked? De-escalation and working through it, which gave him confidence, which established his core values of being a good kid, of working through problems. He's not violent, but I'll tell you what, that boy's capable of violence.
Yeah.
He's very capable of it. Like, it makes me nervous if he ever was to lose his temper with how strong he is, he would hurt somebody defending himself.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. And so I like that. Again, I know I'm going back to it.
No, it's
but that's
fair.
why I really
he's,
like
he's
that.
He's a warrior in a garden, not a gardener in a war.
Let's go.
Yeah, right.
And that's what your dad did with
Yeah.
you as well, my friend.
Well,
you're a warrior.
It's funny because there's something you said that's important, but you just flash back this whole thing. I remember my first bully and I had to step up to, and I walked up to him and I said, my dad's back there and he saw you picking on me and I'm supposed to fight you right now. And the kid just like, huh? I go, so can we just shake hands and call it a day? And he's like, yeah, shook hands. And then I come back, I'm like, we're good. He's like, okay.
That's
so,
amazing.
was,
Like, dude, that is.
I was like, like it's so funny. But the other thing you just said was role playing. Oh my gosh. So that was probably the most, I don't know why it wasn't apparent, but like going through the Echelon online academy, like that was stressed heavily. And I remember you reached out a couple times like, hey, you want to role play with me? That's cool. I think that is so important for any conversation you're about to have. That's big, I don't care if it's marriage related, spiritually related. It's like, go through that role play with somebody who can role play with you so you can hear yourself and boy, I just like, that is a huge point that came. I'm surprised it didn't come up earlier, but it was like a big thing. And that's actually how we trained a lot of our leaders. It was like, so you want to talk to this person? Why don't you pretend I'm that person? Let's talk now. And we go through it and they just, it didn't come out the way I thought in my mind. Right. Like, and it helps so much. Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Like, it's just simple things that just change the trajectory of like an entire conversation.
Yeah.
Just from doing that.
Yeah. Powerful. I mean, if you're going to practice athletics, if you're going to go lift weights at the gym, or you're going to go do Jiu-Jitsu to prepare yourself for a competition, why wouldn't you practice talking to people if that's your job?
Yep.
Right. But it just seems so uncomfortable for so many people. They're like, well, I'm not an actor. Well, I don't need you to act. I need you to do what you would do if this was a real life situation. Yeah. And I do think that, talking about the effort thing is that you, what you praise, you produce. And so if you start telling somebody, hey, you know what, I really appreciate how you care for our customers, that you show them compassion, or you're the way that you're finding solutions, they're going to realize, hey, that's what the boss wants to see, and the production of those things, those characteristics is going to go up. The last thing I have is, you mentioned when you were going through the Extreme Ownership Academy, you started implementing the 4 rules of combat. And that your people were kind of apprehensive to the language. One of the things they talked about at the muster was changing terminology to fit the industry. Is that something that you had to do? And how did that work with your people? Did you get them comfortable with the extreme ownership language, or did you have to change some of the terminology in order to make them more comfortable with the new things you're implementing?
I think some were more comfortable than others. In general, I didn't. What I did was I would start with something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what the verbiage is, but here's how it applies, and I'd talk through that. Most, if not all, folks in my company knew that I had a very, strong background in, like, I love relating things that happened in history as well as in wars. And I was like, we're in sort of a scenario where it's a war, and I relate principles to them. Even the art of war, like the first chapter was about, how you approach, commanding, and I'd give them the background. I'd give them the story. I was like, here's kind of how it applies. So some took it better than others. There were some that were just like, oh, I don't want to hear anything that has to do with the word war, military, etc. And it's fine.
That's understandable.
It's totally understandable. I mean, like, I'm not, this is how I project and lead, and I think underneath the word, the intention is what people care about the most. Like, I'm genuinely trying to help, and this is how I know how to say it, and they'll find other ways to reinterpret it. And I've been in conversations where they're like, so you're saying this, and then I'm like, that sounds much better than what I just said. Like, awesome. Like, yeah, do that. Like, say that, and it's okay. I think the key is, like, the principles, have to apply, right? And I think it was like, decentralized command. It was like, you mean like distributed work groups? And I'm like, yeah,
That's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
I like your idea,
Yeah. Perfect.
which is decentralized command.
Yeah,
When you're
yeah.
like, hey, I like your idea.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like we're gonna create. I was like, think about it. Why are teams 6 people, and then there's a whole command, behind them to support and everything. That's us at HQ. Like and they're like, you mean you want me to create a pod, like a team of people within a pod? I'm like, that's perfect.
Sure.
So, so we had pods and we had colors for the pods. So like, it's great.
That's cool.
It was just like, it's okay. Because remember, like, they're evolving and building the company along with you.
That's culture, man.
Yeah. It's not you. It's like, we're all doing it. That's
all. You are creating culture there,
Yeah.
and you have helped them facilitate and create their own culture there. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the word pod. It just for me, it's
course.
weird. I don't like it. I don't know what about that word I don't like.
teams.
But that's the point. It's like it doesn't matter what you call it, and that's what's funny is like I've worked with companies before. They're like, we don't like the whole fire team thing, and I'm like, that's understandable. They're like, what about pods? And on the inside, I'm like, "Rrr." On the outside, I'm like, I like that.
We got to really dig into the whole, like, why you don't like pods thing at some other.
We'll figure out. Hey, you know what? We'll work on you standing in lines for at a restaurant, and we'll figure out the pods thing together. That alone, those two things could be.
I'm happy to film both of those things happening for content.
I'm such a jerk. Yours is like a legitimate trauma thing, and I'm just being
JP just doesn't like dolphins, and so he's opposed to
like
pods.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You feel claustrophobic with the word?
I actually am claustrophobic.
But that's probably why pod.
No, I don't.
Is it time for a group hug?
No, get away from me.
Hey, it's better than cell.
Actually, yeah. Well, we can go about
Cell block C.
I don't. Yeah, I don't like.
There's
cell.
actually a full episode
like
that's going to
cell.
be on that one day.
There was somebody that suggested that we change the name of our small groups to cells. And we work primarily with like blue collar. Our church is primarily made up of blue collar people, and they're like, absolutely not. That just makes me think of jail cell.
Yeah.
And this guy's he's from another part of the country, and he was like, that makes y'all think of jail cell? And they're like, oh yeah, drunk tank, 100%. We can't call our Bible study cells.
That's what's funny is I like cells because I'm thinking like we would call like red cell, blue cell, like different groups.
Yeah.
Like like guys would use that. Yeah. We had task unit. It was task unit bruiser, and then I guess now they call them task force, or there's different there's all these things that change, like a platoon. Well, a platoon's still a platoon. Within a platoon, you have your squads, you have your fire teams. It's funny is when I was working at that financial company and they had me take over as a sales manager for a little bit, I created my fire teams with this group of women that I worked with, and they thought it was like the coolest thing ever. They're like, I'm on fire team 1. Like, yeah, you're my fire team leader, which is just funny. But we're also in North Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee region of the world where like they were all about it. And, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're creating a culture, and that's what you've done a phenomenal job at, was creating a culture and empowering your people just to go get to work. And that's what we all want at the end of the day. So, hey, real quick before we close it out, you got this awesome shirt on. It's very simple, but I call it awesome because I know your connection is to one of your jiu-jitsu teammates. And I've had limited interaction with them. And the limited interaction I've had with them, I can just tell he is a good human. And he cares, and he's trying to create a good culture and community within jiu-jitsu, but also just some cool life experiences. And I'm actually going to be using his facility. He doesn't know this yet officially. I'm actually, because I'm going to go down there and check it out, but I have some things that I'm working on, some projects for Echelon Front, some experiences, and we're going to use Camp Vertex. So tell me a little bit about it, from what you know.
Yes. So Steve Rocks
Yep.
is the guy. Camp Vertex is, I think, 2 hours, 3 hours.
A little less than 2, yeah.
Yeah. And what it is at different times of the year, like right now, it's hunting season. So it's a hunting lodge. But there's also a jiu-jitsu facility on site that was built. And it's an incredibly beautiful facility. And they have camps, which is Camp Vertex, which he runs. So there's an instructor. We go out, we it's really
They
bonding.
they do handgun and pistol and long range shooting as well,
Yep,
right?
They do shooting by some really cool guys. And we do Jiu-Jitsu, and we eat, and we do that all weekend.
That's awesome.
And it's quite an amazing experience to just, be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Check out Camp Vertex.
Yeah.
I think they'll start it up again next summer.
Yeah. So, Steve, we appreciate you creating that. I know, like, just the hospitality you showed me already, just the times that I've just talked to him over the phone or on a text message and in person at your Jiu-Jitsu Academy was awesome. And it turns out that he's also had a connection and friends with my best friend and my business partner, Stephen Little. And so I know there's talks about them using Little Calico Beef for all their future events as well and stuff like that. And so anyways, just saw the shirt, liked the shirt, want to give Steve a quick shout out before we close it out. So, I mean, I think this is a good place to wrap it up unless, Lucas, you have anything else?
Man, I have so much more.
Oh, yeah.
But not for today.
Ryan, any closing thoughts? I actually do have a question. I'll put you on the spot here. I know you moved. So you're close to the church Amanda and I go to. I would love to have you and Jeanette and the family join us for a service at Milestone Church someday.
I would love that.
Okay, you're down the road. Let's go. I had to ask that. I was like, come on.
Yes.
What closing thoughts do you have for us or for our listeners?
Closing thoughts, just rewinding everything we spoke about. I think the one thing I would stress is don't limit yourself to invisible things that are not there. Your thoughts are your biggest enemy when it comes to doing something. Every time you want something and there's the first excuse that comes up, suppress that. Turn that into an action. If it's an objection, you say, this is what I'm going to do instead, and start there. I think that is the biggest limitation. Is this like our own thoughts telling us that we shouldn't be, don't have. Every time it starts that way, change the perspective and put in action to it. I don't care how small it is. It could be, I'm going to write down for the next 7 days how I'm going to get this goal. You just write it down. You stop thinking and you just turn it into action. And that's what I always default to. Like the minute you overthink something, you're going to not do something. So turn it into action, make it tactile, feel it, go for it. I want to do this. Don't jump in like I did sometimes. Like, I want to do vending. I don't know anything about it. I'm going to just go buy machines. Like instead, go ask. Do you know anyone? Talk to them. Whatever you do, be deliberate about how you achieve your goal. Like do something to get it. And all these slow things just lead up to the fact that you're going to just get your goal. Yeah. Because guess what? It wasn't done in a day. It's going to take time, but you're actively doing something for it. And don't sit there and just wait on it. Don't let yourself mostly tell you can't do it.
Nice.
Right.
I love that. Go get to work, but be smart. Don't be emotional. Be logical and make small iterative decisions.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge, just everything that you shared with our listeners, with Lucas and I. I am just very thankful for that, and I'm thankful for your friendship. So thank you all for the support each of you have given us by listening, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. That makes a big difference on the YouTube channel. I know Danny Ziem listens on it's either Spotify or iTunes, but then he'll also later that day play it in YouTube in the background. So we appreciate you guys doing that. If you want to follow, my mom does that as well now, so I love it.
That's awesome.
If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. That's JPDINNELL. Lucas is at LUCASPINCKARD, and Ryan is at Ryan Vong, RYANVONG, and he is also on LinkedIn, where you can follow Ryan and his new company, Helix CXM.com. Make sure you're also following at Echelon Front. Echelon Front is the leadership consulting company that I work for Jocko and Leif. They started that company in 2012. 2015, they wrote Extreme Ownership. They brought me on board in 2016 as the first leadership instructor. I'm now our chief training officer. I'm just thankful for that opportunity. Thank you, Jocko and Leif, for everything that you've given me. So if you want to learn more about what we do at Echelon Front and what our instructors are capable of doing and how we can come work with you and consult with your business, with your team, that's what we do. It's echelonfront.com, echelonfront.com. If you want to learn more about Extreme Ownership Academy, like Ryan was talking about, you can go to extremeownership.com. I would love to see you at a future event. We talked about the muster. The Force Multiplier event that we have coming up in January is going to be incredible. There's nobody else doing something like that, so I'm looking forward to that. I would love to see you guys at a future event, or if any of our instructors can come work with you and your company. If you want, you can also check out at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA, which is a ministry that I'm a part of with Isaac Tauefa, Stephen Little, Josh Strasburger. We have a podcast. We started that ministry as a way to just bring people closer to Christ, to create an environment where people can learn about Jesus and salvation and hear people's testimonies, but also circled around jiu-jitsu, so that we're doing jiu-jitsu. It's a free jiu-jitsu seminar. We know people will come to that event that would never step foot in a church, and that's okay. So if you want to check that out, you can check us out on Instagram and follow our podcast as well. I'm also partner of a Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Let's go. You can follow us on Instagram at Little Cattle Co. My best friend, Stephen Little, started that company back in 2017, and my wife and I have supported it and enjoyed that beef over the years, and we partnered with them earlier this year. Our website is littlecattle.co, and we can deliver beef anywhere in the lower 48, and we can also send boxes of beef to your customers and clients. If you're looking for a unique way to show them appreciation during any time of the year, we can help facilitate that, and especially with the upcoming Christmas season. Let us know. We actually just had a company reach out, and it was over 30 boxes of beef they purchased for their customers as a holiday thank you, which was really cool.
It was cool. Yeah, I saw the Instagram post for that. And
yeah,
then
they sent us cards, and they sent us stuff that they wanted to be mailed in addition to the beef, and we fulfilled all the boxes for them.
Yeah, and yesterday, and I don't know if Steven's talked to you about this or not, yesterday we hosted a training for the Lake Dallas Police Department.
Yes.
Where they did an active shooter training, and we got lit up with simunitions. It was a ton of fun. But Little Cattle Co. donated some like 1 pound, or some 1 pound things of ground beef
to all the officers.
Yeah, to all the officers that were a part of that. So you guys, the stuff that y'all are doing with Little Cattle Co. and supporting our first responders and the gifts and stuff that y'all have is just awesome. It's an awesome company.
Well,
and the stuff's delicious.
Yeah, it's also the best premium ground beef out there that you can get. I didn't know this. Like, you go to the grocery store and get ground beef, you're like, oh, that's good ground beef. They have good high quality standards. Okay. What I didn't know is that you can have up to 1,000 different forms of beef. That 1,000 different steers that ground beef comes from.
Yep.
At Little Cattle Co., it's one. We slaughter four steers at a time. We don't even mix those up. The beef that you get from our ground beef is the best quality ground beef out there, and it comes from one steer.
That's
one
amazing.
steer. Yeah,
that's why I don't buy ground beef at the store.
Yeah. Well, I'll get you hooked.
It was like 306 different ones. It was the statistic. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah. I've got in my
disgusting.
in my kitchen right now. I've got some of the jalapeno hamburger patties.
Jalapeno cheddar hamburger.
Just thawing out. I'm so stoked. That's dinner tonight.
So we had one of the other business partners in our area of where our warehouse is in Argyle. So if people want to do local pickups and not pay for shipping, they can come pick it up. And one of the other businesses came by and they had some stuff. And the next day, the guy, Steven told me, he showed up. He's like, I want a refund on my money. That beef was crap. And Steven obviously knew he was joking. He was like, actually, I need to order more, because they had eaten the hamburger patties and those jalapeno beef cheddar patties are so ridiculously good. He's like, I ate 2 of them last night, almost ate a third, and I had to stop myself because they also had some steaks and some different meat as well, which like the tablitas and all the other stuff was incredible. So anyways, we appreciate all the support that you guys given us. I'm also a partner with my best friend Josh Strasburger for a printing company here in the Denton area called On the Path Printing. If you want to follow us on Instagram, we are at On the Path Printing, and we hope to be printing shirts in the December timeframe for our customers. We've continued to have some delays and pushbacks, and it's just honestly, I mean, people are asking us, is like, we haven't been able to make it a priority because of other things that are the big priority. Echelon Front is the number one priority on business when it comes to what I have going on. And Josh helps out with a lot of on stuff at Echelon Front as well. And he has Total Fitness Kickboxing with his company here in the Denton area. So we will make that a priority. We appreciate all the people that support us also by, supporting Origin and Jocko Fuel. Those are companies I've been partnered with from the moment I met them because of what they stand for: American-made products, supplements, energy drinks, jeans, boots, hoodies, all those things, Huntline. It's all 100% American made. I know people support me by using my code. If you know my code, keep using it. If you don't have a code for Origin and Jocko Fuel, you can use the code JJJ10. That helps Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast out. But hey, I'm very thankful for men like Ryan, who I get to learn from, whom I get to call a friend, and whom I also get to grow with in life. Life is crazy. And as you've heard and learned from these last 2 episodes, and I hope that you go live your life, and you live your life the way Ryan and his wife have, to make the most of what God has given us in this awesome thing that we do call life. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 9.